Welcome to IDD Get to Know Me, a mental health podcast where nothing is off the table.
Wait, what does IDD mean?
IDD stands for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. You will hear from us, people with IDD, and experts on topics that are important to us and our mental health. I'm your host, Victor.
And I'm Daniel.
On this week's episode of IDD Get to Know Me, we have two special guests, Nicole Bobbette and Victoria Cusumano. Today, Nicole and Victoria will share with us their experiences of being a sibling of a person with an intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Victoria is a fourth-year psychology student at the University of Toronto. She's worked at the Azrieli Centre in various roles over the past 2 years, facilitating self-advocates to get involved in research. Victoria also is a basketball coach with Special Olympics Ontario, but most importantly, Victoria is a sister to Vanessa, who has Down syndrome. Victoria and Vanessa live together with their family in Toronto, Ontario.
Nicole Bobbette is an occupational therapist who has been working with people with IDD for the past 13 years. Nicole just completed her postdoc fellowship at the Azrieli Centre, and she is now an assistant professor at Queen's University, where she teaches in the occupational therapy program. She is really interested in collaboration with people with IDD in research to promote health and improve health services. Her first role, and one of the most important ones, is to be an older sister to Allison, who has IDD and lives semi-independently in Barrie, Ontario. But first, let's check in. How's everybody doing today?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Pretty good, thanks, Victor.
Great to hear that. Shall we get on to the icebreaker question?
Yeah, sounds great.
If you could be immortal, when would you want to stop aging and why?
How about we hear from Nicole first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Nicole.
I think 30. And, I'm an adult,
Yeah.
but, I don't have any gray hairs yet. I think the 30s can be pretty fun.
And Victoria, how about you? If you could be immortal, when would you want to stop aging and why?
I would say 25. I'm not 25 yet, but I feel like that sounds like a pretty nice time. I feel like you have your stuff figured out by then. And like Nicole said, you're an adult, so.
Oh, you may be sorely disappointed. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
So, Daniel,
Yeah.
what about you? If you could be immortal, what age would you want to stop aging?
Probably 18, because I don't want to fully grow up, but I do want to be able to play all the M-rated video games. So that's the good age for me.
That's a great answer.
You
What
want
about
to
you,
know?
Victor?
You want to know my answer?
Yeah.
10 years old, because I can get away with anything. Anything you can think of, I could get away with anything.
Very true. Very true. Very true. Okay, so now that we've broken the ice, let's get into the episode. Victoria and Nicole, it's great to have you here with us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about the sibling perspective.
Nicole, why don't you tell us a little bit about your sibling?
Thanks, Victor. My sister's name is Allison, and she's 36 now. Um, she lives a few hours away from me in her own apartment, but she is an amazing puzzler and singer and self-advocate. So she leads a pretty full life, I think.
Okay, great. And how about you, Victoria?
Yeah, so my sister's Vanessa. She's 19 and she has Down syndrome. She's a super, super fun lady. She loves FaceTiming with friends, singing and dancing, sports. She's a huge food fanatic. She loves going for walks only if it means that she's going to be treated with Starbucks or Tim Hortons afterwards. And we live with my siblings and my parents, and my sister and I actually share a bedroom.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
Question: who gets the top bunk and who gets the bottom bunk?
We actually share the same bed, Victor.
Fun. Victoria, what was it like for you growing up with your sibling, and how has that dynamic changed over time?
Yeah, for sure. So it's always been super fun. I wouldn't say that we're any different than really other siblings. I think maybe the only thing that's different is at times maybe I take on a bit more of a caregiver role, but other than that, we're pretty typical sisters. We've gotten a lot closer now that we're both older. We now like the same sort of social activities, like going to restaurants and that sort of stuff. And she's now been coming to me more so for that, like, big sister advice. She likes to fill me in on the gossip with her friends, so that's been super fun. Yeah, I mean, we also have fights just like every other siblings do. Also, a lot of like that typical sister fighting stuff. Like she
Right,
wears my clothes, and I bug her a lot, and then she rats me out to my parents. So, yeah,
right. Fair
Be
enough.
honest, who wins that fight more, you or your sister?
always Vanessa.
Excellent, excellent.
So what about you, Nicole? How has the dynamic changed between you and your sister now that you are all grown up?
Well, I definitely think we're closer now. We were close when I was growing up, but then I went through a stage when I was a teenager that, you know, I think I was all wrapped up in going to high school. So I think probably when we did a little bit of fighting growing up at that time. So it took a little bit of time, but we talk every week, and I'm really proud of her. Um, and similar to Vanessa, it's just really nice to share some of those sister kinds of things. I always get into trouble, so my family says I'm the high maintenance one. So it my sister does she's the angel for sure.
How has being a sibling to someone with IDD impacted you or your family dynamic?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think my family's probably a lot closer, maybe, than other families are, just because of my sister. We've gone through a lot with her, and it's that one really comment, I guess, emotional thing that we all kind of share, and we've all equally learned just as much from her. And My sister's also like super funny. She's always a comedic relief, so I think she's really that glue that sort of keeps our family together. She's taught a lot of us, like my entire family, she's taught us about kindness and empathy and patience. And I think that's something that all of us take into our other areas of our lives. So, yeah.
Excellent. That's great to hear. I mean, you always hear about like the negatives because maybe that sells, maybe that gets an audience or whatever, but like you never hear about the positive stuff that someone with a disability brings to the table. So that's great. And Nicole, what about you?
I think I would echo a lot of what Vanessa had said. I think my sister, for example, just kept believe in magic and kept kind of the joy and fun alive on a lot of our holidays, maybe longer than some families. And it is, it is such a special thing that has brought us closer together. I do think, like growing up, my parents really advocated for my sister. Healthcare providers kind of shared that that she wouldn't kind of walk or talk, and but my sister is definitely a fighter, and my parents were really strong advocates, and so you know I think what we learned is that nobody else can determine somebody's potential, and I think that that's a lesson that we continue to see. When she pushes boundaries, and we all push boundaries and grow and learn. I think it is an important lesson. I think that she has shared with us, one, to like have fun, keep the magic alive, and two, to that don't let anybody define what your life is going to be. So I think that those are kind of the things that have shaped us and really brought us together as a family. And that's because of my sister, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
I have one question. For Victoria and Nicole, what is the one trait that your sisters could teach the world? If your sisters had this magical power of teaching the world one thing, what would your sisters would like to teach the world? Rather it be empathy, math, like how to be like a better person. What would your sisters teach the world to make it a better place? I'll start with you, Victoria.
Yeah, that's a tricky question because I think she has a lot she could teach people. I would maybe say empathy mixed with like her awesome hugs. She's one of those people that just, she's very in tune with other people's emotions, and she can tell if you're having a bad day, and she's always the first person to ask if you need a hug. And then, she gives you the hug, and then she gives you your space. So I think that's something she could definitely teach a lot of people.
Awesome.
What about you, Nicole?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was just thinking about it while Victoria was talking. My sister wrote a song called "I Am Able," and I think she wrote it, and she got a chance to sing it, and I think it's really that she similarly has lots of things to share, but the idea that we are all able and not defined by other people or perceptions of what we can do. I think that that would be kind of one of her strong messages to the world. If I was to, I know after this she's going to say I got it all wrong, but that's what I would say.
Fantastic.
Well, we have your sisters here right now. Gotcha. We don't
So,
have your sisters. It's not that type of show where we prank people. Not yet. We don't have the budget. But soon. So, being a sibling is not always easy. What are some challenges that you had to face while growing up with a person with IDD? Victoria, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so you know what, it's really interesting. I found a lot of the challenges, I guess, that have come with being a sibling have been more so, I guess, other people's responses or reactions to my sister and our relationship, rather than just my sister herself. As a kid, when we did go to school together in elementary school, the first time that I really understood what it meant, and what made her different from other people, was unfortunately when I was bullied for her, and when people would sort of make fun of her. And it sucks because that wasn't really the way that I wanted to learn about my sister. But it what's nice about it is it kind of I'm not always the most confident, but in that area, I'm always the first one to speak up on behalf of my sister, people like her. So I've definitely learned from that. Also, I think you don't really realize that until you're in the position. But even with things like making new friends or dating life, it can be difficult to sort of you have to carefully select your friends and the people that you spend time with, because it can be challenging when you meet someone, you really like them, but then they might say some things that might be hurtful in terms of your sister or people that you really care about. And It can be hard, and it definitely makes you super sensitive. But At the same time, I'm thankful because my sisters also really helped me filter out people that, maybe I really don't need in my life anyways.
So she's been sort of what's the term? Sort of a filter, um, sort of helped you to have to know which people are sort of worth having around and which aren't, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always give people the benefit of the doubt if you don't have that sort of understanding. But yeah, there's been a lot of times where even when I did share my experiences with my sister, it wasn't always received in the most positive way. And yeah, it worked out for the better because those, again, weren't the people that I wanted in my life, or I guess with me and my sister involved with us.
And what's one thing that each of you have that you think that you've been able to teach to your sibling?
Nicole, will start with you now, just to mix it up.
Hmm.
If I've taught my sister, it's a good question. I don't know what she would say. I I think
But what would you say?
yeah, that's good. Uh, I um, think to one thing I've taught my sister. Well, I'm actually quite bossy, so I think I've taught my sister or helped her um, find her voice to say what she wants and doesn't want to do. I think she was always very good at that, but she has no problem telling her big sister that no, she's good, she's fine. She is doing things the way she wants to do them. So um, I certainly have helped her develop that skill.
Independence. You've helped teach independence.
Yes, I've helped foster that
There you go.
by being a bossy, overprotective sister.
Excellent, excellent. And and Nicole, real quick, what do you think has been hard for you to do in all this?
I think I want things for my sister that are maybe more difficult for her. I'd love for her to be surrounded by good people and strong friendships, and those are the things that I can't give to her, and so it's hard to watch when she's been hurt. So I think
Gotcha,
yeah, I think that's been hard. Um, but
gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that social piece is always difficult, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's the kind of thing you can't really just provide 100% yourself, so understandable. And Victoria, same two questions to you. What do you think is something that you've taught your sibling, and what is something that's been difficult for you with your sibling?
Um, so something I guess maybe I've taught my sister. I mean, she's taught me a lot more than I've taught her, honestly.
Yeah,
But I guess maybe more recently, I've helped her sort of pick and choose the kinds of friends that should be in her life. She's a very giving person, and at times I think she's had some friends that might even just unintentionally, I guess, take advantage of that. So yeah, I've sort of taught her how to still be a good friend. She's always concerned about, being nice to her friends. But I told her, I've been teaching her how you can be nice to your friends, but you can also tell them how you feel.
okay, okay, that's great. And now we're talking about all these things that have been hard and all these things we've taught each other, your all these things that you've taught your siblings and all these experiences you've had and everything. How do you think that this is similar or different to other sibling relationships? We'll start with Victoria.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, our relationship is very similar to anyone else's relationship with their sibling. I think maybe we have different conversations at times than other siblings would have. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, we like to gossip together, we like to argue together. So yeah, pretty typical.
Okay, fair enough. Nicole?
What about you, Nicole?
I I would say it's very similar to Victoria, but because it's just my sister and I, it we she is all I know, and I think it's now that I am older and getting older, I think I worry about different things for her, uh, and I want her close with me, or I want to be there to help with certain things. Whereas I think potentially if she uh, maybe other siblings wouldn't worry about that so much. So it's more about how we grow old together and how I
Okay,
can
so
support her. Yeah.
sort of there's been sort of more long-term planning involved in your relationship, is what you're saying.
Well, I think about it more. I don't know that
Okay.
we've done anything, but those are some of my worries or my thoughts as we grow older together.
Okay.
If you weren't a sibling, how do you think this would impact your life?
I think it's all. I didn't realize it. I think as much growing up, but it really has impacted my life and impacted what I chose to do. So I'm an occupational therapist, and a large part is it really was because of how I saw people help my sister figure out what she wanted and needed to do. And now, as a researcher, I am trying to hear and support people with developmental disabilities to live the lives that they want to live and to find meaning. So I think it having that experience with my sister really put me on this path. So I do thank her for that.
I think that's sort of a common story that we hear among a lot of people in helping fields, that there's a family member that had a situation that inspired them to get involved. So that, yeah, that's great. And how about Victoria? How has your sister impacted your career, your life, etc., and like how would things be different if you didn't have her?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what you said, Daniel, and very similar to Nicole as well. I've had so many different experiences that I think I wouldn't have even had that initial interest, I guess, maybe for if it weren't for my sister's influence in my life. I've been a camp counselor for other people with disabilities, and I've learned just so much and grown so much from those experiences that I wouldn't have had without her. Likewise, with being a Special Olympics coach as well. And I now that I'm in the field of psychology, the whole reason why I really was interested in it in the first place was because I've always just been so interested in the way that my sister thinks, what's going on in her brain. I've always wanted to learn more about that. So psychology was kind of my way of learning more about that.
Cool, very cool. See another example. That's great. What do you think your sibling would say about your relationship with them?
I think she would initially say that I'm annoying, absolutely. But I think she would say I'm a good sister, and she's really great at telling me often that she loves me. So I hope she would add that in as well.
Hopefully, you never know with siblings, right?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
fair enough. And Nicole, what about you? What do you think your sister would say about your relationship?
I think, well, similar to Victoria, I hope she'd say I was a good sister. She told my mom on Sunday that we had a delightful conversation. So I wasn't grumpy or moody or, rushing off to do things. So I, I I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, but I think she still loves me. So,
One can hope, you know.
yeah.
That's so awesome. And we're almost gonna be ready to wrap up, but I just want to ask really quick if there's anything that either of you would like to say before we wrap up.
Anything you would like to say to your sisters before we go?
Well, one thing that maybe if I could just add is that, you know, I never really, I just really always thought of my sister as my sister. And it wasn't until the last couple of years that I realized that there's a community of siblings out there and that we have some shared experiences. And to me, it was really nice to find that community. And so, and to recognize that our relationship is special and maybe a little bit unique or in some ways. So I think that's just maybe what I wanted to share.
Great. Thanks, Nicole.
Victoria, what about you?
I mean, I totally agree with Nicole. I uh, I definitely think that my relationship with my sister is very different, and I'm super grateful for it. I think that, everything happens for a reason. Everyone's in your life for a reason, and uh, yeah, I've definitely learned a lot more about that from my sister. So grateful to have her in my life.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, it has been really great talking with you both today. I've learned a lot about the sibling perspective. Thank you for joining us and see you next time on IDD Get to Know Me.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.
This podcast is brought to you by the Azrieli Adult Neurodevelopmental Centre at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto, Canada. We would like to thank our producers, Katie Cardiff and Irfan Jiwa, for helping to keep us organized and for all the behind-the-scenes work that they do.